What is up, guys? Jake back here from the Killing Joke Studios and Mixing with Metal. I want to give a huge shout out to everyone who's watched the videos so far and to everyone who's subscribed to the channel. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, make sure you do so you can get all caught up and you can catch all the future videos. Today, I don't have as much of a mixing tutorial, but I do have something I think you guys will be interested in, and I think that'll help you guys out. What I'm going to be doing is a two-part series, this being the first part, where I'm going to step through my top 10 plugins. This first half is paid plugins, so this is going to be 5 paid plugins that I use almost all the time that are actually great. It's really 6 plugins because I'm going to show you a nice alternative to one of these plugins. But let's just go ahead and dive in to this. So the first plugin I'm going to show you guys is McDSP's Analog Channel. Now this is a fairly old plugin actually, and a lot of people used it when it first came out, but I think it's been kind of forgotten about. I think a lot of people are going more towards the Slate stuff and going more towards other things, which there's nothing wrong with that. Those are all great plugins, but there's just something magic about this Analog Channel that when you put it across all your tracks and you dial it in correctly, it just sounds absolutely incredible. As you can see, you have a roll-off here, so you get that kind of classic roll-off, and you also have a bump. So wherever you roll off, you can bump the bass a little bit. You can set your speed. You can set your tape type. There's EQ types, bias, release, all this great stuff. And I'm not sure what it's doing, to be honest with you. I know it's modeling some sort of analog desk when you put it across all your channels, but it creates a little bit of magic, and especially when you're mixing in the box, it creates a little bit of that warmth that everyone's going for, that analog warmth that people are going for, which a lot of metal people would say sounds very digital, but there's a lot of great records out there, great metal records out there that have that analog warmth to them, and this can really glue your mix together and get you closer to that point. So first one is this plugin. Now I'm going to show you an alternative to this plugin, which is a plugin from Waves called Waves NLS, which stands for Nonlinear Summer. And what NLS does is, boot up down here. Sorry about that. NLS, same thing, models different channels in a desk. So you have 3 desk types here. You have a drive knob, and you have an output attenuation. Now, NLS does some cool stuff. I won't go over all of it today, but that's basically what it does is it models a desk. And if you look in the presets tab, you can see you have all these different channels. You have 32 channels on each desk, so you can mix and match these across your entire mix to get something that is summed in a non-linear way. And it does that same thing. It adds that analog saturation to it. So NLS, Analog Channel, both great plugins. The Analog Channel I prefer a lot of times, but the NLS I use across vocals a lot because it just adds this nice saturation of vocals. I generally keep it on the Neve model. So Waves NLS. The next plugin I want to talk about is FabFilter's Pro Q2. Now, if you've watched the mixing tutorial, you've probably seen this plugin. This plugin is incredibly popular, and it's incredibly popular for a reason. Now, it does the same thing as your stock EQ. When you think about it, you can create a band, you can change the Q. It's very much a surgical EQ like that, but it's so open and it's so freeform in the way that it does things that it makes for EQing a lot easier. So what I mean by this is I can drag this and I have a million different curve shapes. I have a huge range of Q. I have 30 dB of gain either way, and it's just an EQ with so many features. You have a 0 latency mode, you have a natural phase mode, and you have a linear phase mode. So if you're using it across like your mix bus or whatever, you can use a linear phase mode. Sometimes natural phase sounds better. 0 latency means, hey, you can throw on some EQ while tracking, and it stays true to that 0 latency. It really doesn't hit your CPU at all. In addition to that, you also have a keyboard roll, a piano roll here. So you can say you're trying to find a particular note or whatever, and you're trying to notch it out or boost it or whatever you may need this for, you can actually just type in the note and find it. Has some other cool stuff too. It has EQ match feature, has higher range, lower range, all that stuff. Geez, where do I even start? There's so much that this EQ can do that it gets to be way too useful to ignore. Is what I'm trying to say. Let me load up a stereo version of it real quick. I was looking for a feature it had, and I realized it was the mono version. The stereo version, you also have a mid-side and a right and left mode, which I can't seem to find right now because I'm not paying attention. So there's a mid-side mode somewhere in here, and I don't use mid-side too much, but if you want to use it, you could. Also has full screen mode, so you can do that. Different sizes, which I know may sound stupid, but it actually is pretty useful. And yeah, Pro Q2 is great. So if you haven't gotten Pro Q2, make sure you go get it. It is incredibly useful. That's my go-to EQ. It's what I use all the time. So third plugin, I want to talk about the CLA 76 from Waves. Now, Pro Tools comes with the BF 76, which is another 1176 modeler. Here's the BF 76. And it may look similar and it may do similar things, and that's cool. And it's for what it does. Well, a little bit of noise coming in there. For what it is, it's a good plugin. But the CLA 76 does something special. So Waves actually modeled Chris Lord Algae's actual 1176s. They modeled a blackface and a blue stripe one, and just the color and the saturation that this compressor adds is absolutely amazing. I know some people that prefer this plugin, the CLA 76, over their hardware 1176s on certain applications. A lot of people use this on vocals over a hardware 1176. It's just a phenomenal sounding plugin. And if you can't afford an 1176, and this is a no-brainer, if you can't afford one, still I would pick it up because it's something that is just another tool and it's incredibly useful, and it just has something about it that sounds amazing. So on to our fourth plugin, which is RBass. Now, this one is a little bit different. A lot of these other ones are stuff that you will be using constantly. Sorry, I bumped the mic there. That you'll be using constantly. RBass you may not use all the time, but it doesn't mean it's not useful. So what is RBass? RBass is a subharmonic generator. So what it's going to do is it's going to take whatever frequency you choose. I generally use it on bass drops and stuff like that, so around 60 hertz for me. And then it's going to create harmonics for that. So you can bring up that bass a little bit more, and you can kind of show off your bass on systems that maybe won't reproduce as much. So RBass is really cheap. It's part of the Renaissance bundle from Waves, which I've talked about before. If you haven't picked up the Renaissance bundle from Waves, just do it. All the tools in there are incredibly useful. I use Reverb all the time, and I use RBass all the time. I even use their EQs a lot. And it's just a really great plugin when the application's right. Bass drops, kick drum, stuff like that. And really what you want to do here is just dial it to your frequency, whatever frequency sounds the best. Generally, you want to crank this intensity way, way down and attenuate with your output if you need to. But just adding a little bit of bump to it, RBass can really support the low end in a really pleasing way. So the last plugin I want to talk about is another FabFilter plugin, and it's a brand new one, and that is the Pro C2. Now, their Pro C, which is a compressor, if you didn't pick that up, their Pro C, their original compressor, I wasn't a fan of. This is their original one. It didn't sound that great to me. It had some options, but really, it wasn't anything outside of, Pro Tools stock compressor, and it was just okay. But this revision 2 is absolutely amazing. Again, much like the Pro Q2, this is my go-to compressor for stuff. If I'm just trying to load up a compressor, I'm not looking for a ton of saturation, I'm not looking for anything like that, I'm just looking for a compressor, this is the one I go to. You have, let's see how many styles here. You have 8 different styles of compressor. You have a huge range of attack, a huge range of release. You have a million different options, much like the Pro Q2. You have sidechain functionality, which works really well. And it's just a great, great compressor, and it's so versatile in everything it does. You even have a wet and dry blend where you can do some parallel processing. And I actually, when I'm doing this again has the full screen mode, much like the Pro Q2. But when I'm using this, I just go in and I load up presets and I go from there because the presets in it are amazing as well. So this is great. Again, if you're looking for another compressor to maybe throw in to replace your stock compressor, I definitely would consider this. If you look at my inserts here, my Pro Q2 and my Pro C2 are my stock EQ and stock compressor. I use these all the time, and they're amazing tools. So rounding this all out, I just want to make a mention of paid versus free. These are paid plugins, like I mentioned in the beginning of the video, but it doesn't necessarily mean they're better plugins than the free ones. Next week, I'll be uploading a free plugins to complete this top 10 list, and I use those plugins just as much, sometimes even more than the ones I've shown here. If you shop these on sale, which I shopped all of these on sale, you can get all of these for relatively cheap. I think I got NLS for $100, Pro Q2, I think for $100 or so. Yeah, I think I got all of these for under $100. Besides R-Bass, I got the whole Renaissance collection for about $100. So that's definitely a thing you want to check out. But what I'm saying is shop sales if you can't afford it right now, and make sure you're just keeping an eye on this stuff, because these tools are very useful. And for things like Pro Q2 and Pro C2 especially, they're things you're going to be using constantly, and I couldn't recommend them more. So thank you so much for checking this video out today, for tuning in, and please subscribe to the channel, like this video, leave a comment below, let me know your favorite plugins. Maybe you disagree with my list, or maybe you agree with my list. If this helps you in any sort of way, just let me know. If you have any ideas for future videos, anything like that, just leave it in the comments below. All applicable links to this video, to all the products, will be in the description, as well as links to my Facebook and my website. Thank you so much, guys, for tuning in. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll talk to you guys later.